We know it's just love that we're giving to this place that we call our home. We can't change what's been done, but it's still our run. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light.
Hi, I'm Sanjoy Roy, the co-chair of the Catalyzing Change Week Programming Committee. Welcome to CCW 2024. This is where you'll meet social innovators, change makers, folks from government and from bilateral agencies. And of course, this is a place to look at best practices, share ideas and innovations, and enjoy networking with each other. Welcome to the session.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. Raise a hand. Good, fantastic. Okay, so uh, delighted to be here, and thank you everyone for joining. And as I am speaking, I am just sending the link to someone who is going to be joining us as well. Hold on 1 second. Oops, hold on. So today we're going to be speaking on crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, just to, I'll be introducing the panel to start off. And then following that, I will be asking each member of the panel to speak specifically around crowdfunding from their experience, where they have come from, and also give specific advice on what are the most important things that you should be considering if you're looking at launching a crowdfunding campaign. And also to share on what is the one thing that you should also really look out for or be aware of or consider carefully before you launch. What could trip you up? Because it's great to know about all the best advices to what will make a crowdfunding campaign successful. But also we've learned through hard experience that only 50% and sometimes less of people who launch campaigns or organizations that launch campaigns raise the funding they need. The preparation is critically important. How you conduct your campaign, how you engage with your various potential backers or donors. That's all very important. But what we're here to do today is from some of the leaders in the industry across Africa, to ask them on their advice, share it with you, and then engage in conversation around specifically if you've been looking at campaigns or you're looking to launch a campaign or considering it. We can speak to you directly now in this session around that. So with that, to start off, myself, I'm Patrick Schofield. I'm a co-founder of both BackerBuddy, one of the largest donations crowdfunding platforms in Africa, as well as ThunderFund, one of the leading platforms in the reward/product-based crowdfunding. We pioneered crowdfunding across Africa. We've raised over $13 million for over 50,000 individual campaigns within Africa. And it's been a journey, very exciting. We've seen a huge amount of success achieved through crowdfunding. And we've also seen significant challenges specific to where we work in Africa. But I can say that crowdfunding has been a very powerful way for many organizations and individuals to raise the funds that they need. I'd now like to introduce my other panelists. Firstly, off the mark, Chai Malay, who's joining us from Nairobi. Chai, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chai Malay. I'm a co-founder of Mchanga Africa. Mchanga Africa is a crowdfunding platform. It is the second largest crowdfunding platform in Africa. We have managed to raise about $22 million across 90,000 campaigns and 1.5 million supporters. We've been on a similar journey to Patrick's, probably about the same amount of time, the last 10, 11 years. And so we are the East Africa kind of counterparts to the South Africa one. And so we are really looking forward to sharing our journey and our learnings. So I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chai. And just a note there as well. As we move through the session, if there's questions you'd like to ask, please add them to the meeting chat and we can respond to them as we go through the session as well. And if you'd like to introduce yourself to the group at large in the chat as well, you'd be most welcome to. I'd also now like to introduce Sadiqa Bars, who is charity lead at Bakabuddy. Sadiqa, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be good.
Thanks, Patrick. Morning, everybody from a very cold Cape Town. Morning, hope everything's well on your side. So I am the charity campaigns manager at Bakabuddy, where I literally start the process of onboarding of all our organizations and charities up until the very end of it. And I deal with a variety of different things within the organization sphere of things. That is onboarding, that's the verification of organizations, that's payouts, that's donor databases, that's campaign creation, maximizing these campaigns. So that's just a little of what I do in a little nutshell. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Sadiqa. Sadiqa has experience directly on the ground as to working with organizations, many organizations over the years, and seeing what, in terms of actual implementation of a campaign, work with campaign really makes a difference. And now I'd also like to introduce Henley Kumwenda, who is in Malawi, and will be able to join us to speak on from the side of an actual organization that has raised. Henley, you can let us know how much has been raised over the years. Henley, over to you. Henley, you might be on mute. Henley, I think you're still on mute.
Hello.
There we go.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Henry Kajirange from Malawi, and I'm here to say that Bakabuddy have been a family to us from northern Malawi for a long time. I think we started 2016, looking at things in Malawi. And when I was in South Africa, I tried to talk to Patrick through a friend that if I start fundraising, at least I can change our kids' lives, because I grew up in the village. Always I could travel like 7 kilometers to school and back. But now that I was in South Africa, to see a very good life of how schools are managed there, I tried also to bring close education to our community. So from 2016 up to now, we have managed to send about 22 kids to secondary school. Some challenges that the others, they don't finish the school, they get married quickly through motivation of cultural that they should get married. But others, they have tried and finished. Then I've managed to construct a campsite along the Lake Malawi, that when my volunteers come from all over the world, they go there and see the beauty of Lake Malawi. We have also tried to construct a primary school direct in our village where I come from. So for me as Henry, knowing Patrick, it has been very pleasure, and we are still working together. Now we are up to construct a secondary school just from donors, Germany, United States, just because of giving reports of what we are doing, and then the donors, they become happy and see what we are doing. So yes, and they have gotten maybe about 30 to 40 volunteers that they come Only the problem was Corona. When we had the Corona, it was very difficult to get volunteers or people travel around. But this time of the year, they have started traveling. I had one for 1 week from Austria. And yeah, we have done a lot. Through Bagabadi, I've managed to raise almost 840,000 lands from 2016, which is a very big achievable. If I didn't have that connection to the friends or Bagabadi was not there, it would have not been there. Some of the challenges that we get if we forget to post what we are doing in the villages, then our friends, they tend blind eye, like to forget us. But what I do is each and every month end, I send them what activities we do and what our achievers are. And then I collect data from the students, we pay school fees. And once they give me that data, I send it to friends. That's why now we are able to still learn. Yeah. Yes, yes.
Henry, that's fantastic. Guys, it's as Henry's mentioned, Henry has been on the crowdfunding journey for the last 8 years or so, and 800,000 rand is what has been raised, and from a relatively small organization that started with Henry, but it's not only the organization; it's then the organization itself and the community. But Henry, I'd love to ask you in a couple of minutes around those things that you think have been most important in helping you be successful with crowdfunding. But I'm going to come back to you and ask you on that. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, Sadika, as an operational person in handling many campaigns in the crowdfunding space, to start with you, the three things that you think are the most important considerations to ensure that people, or give them the best option, best possibility of raising the funds that they need through a crowdfunding campaign?
Thanks, Patrick. I think the three that stands out a lot for me is one, a compelling story, first and foremost. And I think when assisting organizations within BackerBuddy, I often use a 7-way method, which I think has worked very well, which is when compiling the story or compelling the story, would be to start with a strong hook to kind of understand the basis of everything. What is it that you want to achieve? So if we take hypothetically, we take the youth unemployment rate in South Africa, speaking in a certain country, you would want to pose a question as a starting little heading. Pose the question to make your donor think of the question that you've asked, or state a stat when deduction of the thing. State the stat to make donors think, actually didn't think about that. That's actually an interesting fact. I mean, currently South Africa's unemployment rate is almost at 50% of our population, which is quite shocking in general. So making that quite known and just putting it out there is a very big part in it. Then the second little part would be highlighting the problem. Then it would be how you would help the problem, or your shared vision on how you can positively change the problem within the area that you're focusing. So then personalize the story. I think we speak very much about this at BackerBuddy, where campaign methods always work. Having someone as a face of your campaign is probably one of the best things, because they have a human interaction. Sadika's having this problem, and a donor can resonate with Sadika's issue that she's having. Instead of just having a very general, out there, to the point campaign, make it more emotive and personalized, where you can actually feel the person's heartfelt emotions, that there's a human element behind the story in essence. Then second last would be make it tangible. That's the most important thing. Have a call to action within your campaign. And also probably one of the most important things, just to say thank you, a sense of gratitude. I think that would be the first section, which would be telling a awesome campaign story. Second one that I would think of is engaged community, Patrick. I think it would be very oblivious for organizations to just have a social media and then pop up campaign link and be like, hi, listen to this campaign. I think engaging with your audience, with your community is very important. It brings a sense of stability. It brings a sense of unity. And when you do at a campaign link, they are more receptive in receiving that campaign link and donating to the campaign. And then lastly, I would say transparent communication. I think that's probably one of the best things. I think in the campaign story that you will be using, be clear about fundraising goals, be clear how funds will be used, and then also just provide regular updates to them so that donors feel that they're part of this journey, that they're working with you and your organization. And I think you really cannot go wrong with those three.
Wonderful, Sadiqa. Thank you very much. Yes, it's whether it's crowdfunding or whether it's you out there and making a pitch to an individual funder, those principles come through. They are the same. As you said, like when you create a story that is personal and direct and simple and easy to follow, that is powerful. When you create something that's general and it just doesn't have that direct connection, it's much more difficult. And I think that last thing you mentioned, which is so critically important, is, and what Haley spoke to just now, letting people know what you've done with their funds sets you up for future funding. Thank you, Sadiqa. Chai, over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Just to add to some of the recommendations that Sadiqa just gave us and maybe flesh it out. So I have the three things that I have here are: one is to ensure that the organization itself has adequate resources to sustain a fundraising campaign. I think it's really easy to see a campaign run on social media, and maybe just regular media, and assume that it's just about like running the ads and eventually the crowds come, but really, you have to have a dedicated resource to manage the communications from start to finish, because they do change. They are targeted at different segments, and so you really need to have resources to do that. The second one is to ensure that the fundraising campaign has a clear goal and start and end. And this is just kind of building on what Sadiqa said. Most people in our experience, right, over 12 years in East Africa, most people are encouraged to donate when they know they can make an impact, right? So it's really difficult to mobilize donations if, say, the fundraising campaign is going on for over a year, right? Because then the goal is far away, the results are a year away, and it's very hard to attract fundraising that way. So, maybe shortening the fundraising duration or breaking it up so milestones that people can, your donors can achieve along the way becomes very important. Otherwise, you get donor fatigue. And then finally, is just to ensure that the donors receive consistent and constant updates as the fundraising is happening, because they'd like to know, how much they move the needle, right? Many donors are just one-time donors, right? And they'd like to understand, how much more they manage to help the cause. So those are three things that we have seen in our experience to the success of a fundraising campaign.
Chai, thank you very much for that. We find it again and again. People like to feel or know that their donation or their support is going to have an impact. So when you tell your story or when you engage with your donors or backers, letting them get a view or understanding as to how important their individual donation or their individual backing of your organization is critical. It also allows them to then speak to their friends, their colleagues and so forth, as to why they have done what they've done, why they've got behind you and backed you. And remember, crowdfunding is social funding. So think of it in many ways as just like you would, what makes a Facebook post or Instagram post or TikTok video go viral. Think about that and translate that into how your campaign will be shared. Henley, having heard the advice and thoughts from Sadiqa and Chai, in your experience as a person who has successfully raised a significant amount of funds over the years, how does that resonate with you, and what do you think from that has been most important in making your campaign a success over the years?
There was a little bit of noise. Can you ask again?
I was saying, having heard what Chai and Sadiq have spoken of in terms of what they think are the most important things that one should focus on or address in crowdfunding to be successful, what has been the most important things that you've seen in your experience of running a campaign successfully that have ensured or or have resulted in the success of your campaign?
Yeah, one of the things that the gentleman from Tanzania said that he wants other donors are just once off, and it's very hard for us to convince those kind of donors, because when we start talking to them, others are very interested, like, I'll do this, and then I would love to do this. Maybe his grandfather passed Malawi and then they have a history. So collecting all that data, putting together, asking is a little bit of a very difficult to convince. But however, yesterday I was talking to a gentleman. He's in Germany. So he came and volunteered with us. And then for the past 3 years, I've been trying to tell him how important it is for him to help. And then he said, no, I'm at school, I'm at this. But yesterday he gave me a call saying, no, we can do this and this and this. So it's all about commitment, knowing what you do. And then at the end of the story, they say, thanks for you asking me and again for us to help. So it's all about committed to what you see in your village and what you can do. And then not forcing, but just knowing what you are doing, and then the help comes. However, others, they are very strict with the invoices, and if you don't know how to write invoice, it's very difficult. So yeah, there's some challenges, but for me to achieve to 800 Southern Lands campaign, it have not been simple. And also the kids that they are in universities now, I tell them, once you finish, you come and join me so we can help more. So that's what my goal is. But I will encourage that. Knowing more people is very good. And knowing what you can do to each other is something that I learned, that each and every person is important to one another, as long as you know ideas that you can put together and work. They say the way I've worked with you, Patrick, I know ABCD to Patrick is this. This and this doesn't work. So yeah, that's how it works. Hello?
Wonderful, Henry. You know, it is so with this, it's a in the journey with Henry specifically, what I've seen has been most powerful is that, as Henry said earlier, every month I receive, and I see to his general donor community, updates that come through where will speak directly in a little WhatsApp video to one of the students who has been now funded to go to school, or will take a video walk around of the classroom that's now been built, or send a WhatsApp message thanking the various people who have donated in that month. And this is the thing, is in today's world, it's really easy to let people know what you're doing. But so often people don't do that. They wait to get that formal impact report out, or that formal update that needs to go through email and so forth. It's not the way people engage these days. It's like, remember your donor community or your backer community, think of them almost like a family. And how would you engage with your family? You don't send someone a formal report. You send someone a informal message space where they feel special and they feel seen. That makes all the difference. And as one of the points that Henley made there is, remember, crowdfunding, don't think of your campaign as a once-off event. Think of it as a launch of a continuous engagement that you're going to make over the years. I see Sadiqa nodding on this. Many people think of a crowdfunding campaign as like, okay, I'm going to do this, it's done, then I'm moving on. No, it's the beginning of a relationship. And what Henry spoke about just now, where he said he doesn't only engage with the people who are their donors, but the beneficiaries. And he speaks to them and says, well, you have now benefited from this. Would you like to pay it forward? And that's a very clever way to work, because it means that you're constantly growing this community of people who have both benefited directly from your initiatives, and those who have been supporting on a regular basis. So I think out of all of these, if I'd like to come in now with what I think are having heard from Chai, having heard from Sadiqa, And really just to affirm what they've spoken about. Firstly, one, in the storytelling, being very clear and specific as to what you're looking to raise your funds for. Not, hey, this organization, but actually a specific area of focus that this organization or this initiative is going to address. Makes a huge difference. People can then relate and understand their donation or their backing this campaign is going to make a difference right there. Then, secondly, and this is Chai mentioned this. This is really important. Make sure before you go live that you have dedicated resources to engage on a daily basis with your campaign. It's not something that just goes live and make it and people will come. It involves significant daily work to make sure that that campaign launches. And thirdly, what we spoke about there, and Chai mentioned that there was champions, and I think Sadika spoke to too. If I say to you, or if someone says to me, or I say to Chai, tell me how amazing you are. And and Chai then will say, well, I've done this, and people go, yeah, okay, we're interested, we're listening. But if I say to Sadika, tell us how amazing Chai is, then we listen because we're like, okay, so it's not about him speaking about himself, it's about somebody else, giving reference and credibility to that person. That's where champions are really powerful, is that when you have people who come in and speak to how powerful or how amazing the work has been done by that organization. People like that, people respond very well to it. Now, before we open up to questions from the floor, we have a surprise guest who I'd like to introduce, who has co-authored a book on crowdfunding for organizations and NGOs, which will be launched in a couple of months' time. And she has had significant experience and launched some of the most successful crowdfunding campaigns in South Africa over the last 10 years. And she is indeed related to me. And I would like to hand over the floor to Erica Schofield, who I've asked to speak on what she thinks from the writing of her book, and her experience are the most important considerations to if you want to have a successful crowdfunding campaign. Erica, over to you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much. Amazing to be here, and nice to see Sadika. She's been really helpful in one campaign I've been working on recently. So thank you for that. So obviously I agree with all the points beforehand, and I chose my 3 top tips. And the one is a slightly unusual one. It's actually been one of the blockers of campaigns that I've worked on that haven't worked. Can everyone hear me? Brilliant. Is ensuring that your leadership team or the person driving the project that you're raising funds for is fully on board with the crowdfunding campaign. It really involves all your resources to run a very successful campaign. And I've had funny examples where the board has scheduled an event on the same day as launch day. So they're suddenly asking their community for 2 different things at the same time. So really having leadership on board. Second is very much, do you have a crowd? And by that, having run campaigns, I mean, sit down, write down their names. Do you have their emails? Do you have their numbers? And almost you're building your crowd happens from today. And it's not about a campaign. It's, as everyone said, it's about building a relationship. So can you start getting those details and finding people who are excited by the work you do, and just keep them updated before you even think of having a campaign. So when you get there, all those kind of very practical steps are ready. You can just send an email. You don't have to go get email addresses. And then the last, for me, it's also very important to start with believable goals. So often the way we can do it is breaking down the goals. So you have the target of where you want to get, but what are the steps, and raise for the steps. And I think this speaks to also the impact. So when a donor comes, they feel that their donation If you're raising in South African terms for 100,000 Rand, you know you want to reach 1 million, but someone is more likely to think, if we donate to this, we'll reach this 100 Rand first. And that can be incredibly helpful, because when you reach that 100,000, you can email those donors again and say, we did it, and now this next thing we're doing can get us closer to our goal. So it gives you a reason to chat to your donors along the way. And what's coming out of the book, so of course I've been diving into statistics, and it's been quite delicious, because you're like, you know stuff's true, and then you see, oh no, it's true globally. Is a really interesting stat. Between 1 and 2 and 5 donors, it's like 1.2 donors, 1 and 2, 5 donors will donate again to the same campaign. So those updates are incredibly important, because you may get a second donation from the same donor when they see you making progress and getting closer to your goal. So those are my kind of 3 things that I think can really help a campaign succeed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Erica, and thanks for joining us on this.
Thank
It's
you.
always really exciting to have people in the room who have specifically specialized and done the research as to both the assumptions we make and the challenges, and whether they stand. And just to point to what Erica spoke to there, and what Chai also just recommended, is that it's not just about letting your backers and so forth know what's happened once the campaign is over, but letting people know as it progresses, and you build this groundswell of excitement. That is what drives it. And just that brings me back to the question as to, what is a crowdfunding campaign? Is it about raising funds, or actually is it more about, as Erica mentioned just now, building a community of supporters who will form the base, the foundation of your organization as it grows? Because remember, in today's world, having 1 or 2 big donors, yes, you would really like those, but that's high risk. And if one of those donors or one of those backers decides to change direction, suddenly you're significantly exposed. A community of funders who you can rely on to create a base of support going forward, that is a much more or much lower risk strategy for maintaining your funding support going forward. And to me, it's one of the things that's always really excited me about crowdfunding, is you step away from the idea that you have 1 or 2 big donors who basically often control and or not control, but have significant impact on the direction your organization is going. But when you have a community of donors, you know that actually, quite simply, when something is needed or you might have a challenge, they are the people who you can turn to. And when something exciting comes up that you can now look to grow or support, they are the people who you've already built a history with, who will support you going forward. So on that note, I would like to just firstly turn to the panel and just say, from our discussions now, are there any further comments you'd like to add that you think which you'd like to highlight in this? Sadika?
From my side, I don't think so, Patrick. I think we've covered very, very basics of it all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Chai?
And for me, I would just add the friction of donating. And I'll just give an example. So some organizations may fundraise maybe via an event, right? So they have an event and then people attend and donate there. Not necessarily, you may exclude some people that maybe don't have time to attend the event, but do want to support. So it's really important for the NGO or organization in question to have as many frictionless donation options as possible. So that really means like you should really tailor, if your campaign is running in East Africa, for example, you really need to have mobile money, right? Because that is what's used and that is what people experience on a daily basis. It may be different in Europe, right? Or South America. So just really paying attention to how easy it is to donate. We had an example of a UN agency. I won't really go into much more detail, but they had a campaign that they were running and they used a global payment processor that only worked with credit cards. And and they didn't do too well in Kenya, where they just didn't have the appropriate payment solution. So I think that's one thing to keep.
Thank you, Chai, because everyone on the call now, it's a critical aspect. You know, nothing is more frustrating than when someone wants to support your campaign or your organization and they struggle to do so. It's in many ways why crowdfunding has become so powerful. It is because it is now relatively easy to donate from anywhere in the world or support from anywhere in the world, and also to disperse funds to anywhere in the world. And on our platform, BackerBuddy, we relaunched a complete new platform built from the bottom up 2 months ago now. And we've experienced some of the challenges of when the payment gateways are having issues. It's extraordinarily frustrating, and we've had to deal with that. So that's been quite a journey for us directly. But it is, you know, a question you can ask yourself. You know, what is the right platform for you to use if you are going to launch a campaign? And that consideration that Chai has put square and center should be square and center. You can have all sorts of features, all sorts of other things, but are the donation or payment gateways that are live on that platform, are they appropriate to the target audiences that you're looking to engage with for your crowdfunding campaign? Okay, so now I'm going to turn to some of the questions in the chat itself. And from John Karma, how do you account for the funds received through crowdfunding? How important is it to account? Yeah, that is. Would any of the panelists like to speak to that?
I could try to kind of add some suggestions there. So thankfully, there are crowdfunding platforms that exist, right? So in terms of, say, accounting for how much has been raised, who and how many times, a donation has been made, that becomes fairly straightforward. So that's our recommendation: use a crowdfunding platform. And now, after the money has been raised, right, then accounting for how the money impacted the project becomes really important. I don't know that there's any particular format. It really depends on your donors. But for the crowd, it being a crowd, it's not as complicated as, say, institutional donors, right? And I would say a lot of that can be built into your campaign messaging, right? So accounting for the funds can be part of your crowdfunding updates, right? And we got 100,000 Rand. We, kind of bought a vehicle and things like that, and maybe photos of the vehicle. So, accounting also can be built into your campaign. I think that's my feedback.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Chai. I'd say, I remember I was actually in a session with the Schwab Foundation with the president of Rwanda a couple of years ago, and Rwanda is renowned for being very low on the corruption index. They're an incredibly accountable country. We know that Rwanda does have some other issues and so forth, but in terms of accountability and operations, they are amazing, absolutely amazing. And you ask them, like, why is there so little corruption in Rwanda? And his response was, it was a group of literally like 20 of us. His response is because right from the start, when we establish a new project or program, the first things we put in place is accountability structures, so that everyone knows at the beginning that this is going to be something that we report on, that we track and follow. And it's one of the advantages of working with a third or independent party like a crowdfunding platform, is that one, it shows that the funds are being held by an entity before they're transferred as such. Two, often those crowdfunding platforms offer an accountability tracking as such. They always say, why is there so little fraud committed through crowdfunding platforms? If you think about it, crowdfunding is a very public way to raise funds. When you're successful, it's amazing. When you're not, it's also it's very public as such. So it means that every donation is tracked, or every donor or backer can be seen by the public, both for themselves and their communities. And then in terms of saying, through commentary and so forth, if the campaign or the organization does not report and keep their donors up to date and so forth, that commentary can come through quite strongly. So in terms of how do you account for funds received, I think going back to Henley and his the Kingfisher Volunteer Camp, which has raised over 800,000 rand, regular informal communications. It's one of the simplest and easiest. And remember, guys, in this world, you don't have to create long reports. It can be a 2, 5 minutes, even 30-second, just a little a message that goes through to say, hey, here's a photograph of what we've done. Here's a conversation with one of our beneficiaries. Here is a photograph of the food garden that we planted. Here is the jam factory that we now funded with your funds. So, John, in terms of that, how important is it to account for? It's a critical part. If you are going to build a community of people who are going to grow that organization or your initiative, it's probably the most important thing that you can do post raising the funds that you need. And just looking through here. Are there any other questions that we would like to take from the floor? There's quite a few comments coming here, so it's quite hard to track. You can also speak up directly if you'd like.
Patrick, I see there was a question around champions earlier.
Around champions, what was the question?
Matthew Patton. Champions of a cause are of critical importance across the whole spectrum of fundraising. What are practical ways to embed and engage them in a crowdfunding campaign? What are top tips and experiences?
Yes, absolutely. Back to the panel. Would anyone like to answer to that?
Patrick, I think I can give it a go. So with regards to champions, like Matthew said, it plays a very crucial role. And I think the most important thing when champions are championing for your organization, I think Patrick mentioned it earlier, where they speak on their personal experience. So if I am really understanding or really wanting to give back to organization, it's always best to hear Sadiko's story and why Sadiko wants to support Akabadi, hypothetically speaking. The experiences I had, just your personal story of a champion plays such a part. With that being said, the organization also now fosters into that champion's network, which means they ultimately are exposed to more support in essence. Might not be through donations, might be through sharing, but more people are then aware of the organization that the champion is championing for. And who knows, they see your friend doing great work. Why don't we do this as a friend group? I think we have a lot of champions on Akabadi, and in our organization's department, I feel like that's probably one of the best things that works for us. We champion organizations and how organizations raise funds. When you take the scale of organizations having their own campaigns running compared to where champions are running campaigns for organizations, our champions outrun the ratio by so much, because like again, it's just a personal story. Champion is explaining why they like Akabadi or a certain organization and what they stand for, and how this organization maybe help them. I think Chai spoke earlier on also to the extent of alumni coming in and saying we're paying it forward. This is what we want you to do. So I think champions really do play a part, and I think embedding them in the crowdfunding space is so important, and it boils down to one thing of their personalized story at the end of the day. That's it from me.
Chai or anyone else from the group which we have here who'd like to comment on that in terms of champions?
Just in terms of embedding them in your fundraising campaign, I'll just go back to crowdfunding technology. And so now it's possible that you can run a campaign and assign that same campaign to multiple people. So just in terms of technology, now we have the tools available to bring these champions into the campaigns. So I guess my response is yes, the crowdfunding platform as a method to bring in champions works well.
Yes, you know, it's back to that what I spoke about earlier, where it makes such a difference when people reference your organization as someone who says, "I believe in this person or in this organization." It's probably one of the most critical aspects, or one of the most powerful ways to engage other people to become supporters. You know, people often say like, well, so this campaign I've launched, let's say it's for food and nutrition support in a local area that might have experienced a disaster. Surely everyone should donate to this. You know, people support campaigns when they see other people have supported them. And most importantly, it starts with, if your direct community gets engaged and says, "I believe in this person," or "I believe in this organization," then other people will come in, because people who might not have met you or might not have even engaged with your organization before, they need a reference. They need to see that other people have said, "Yes, we believe in this campaign or in this organization," and they will then come on board. And that's where champions can be very powerful. Is they give you the reference to say, "This is a trustworthy organization that we have believed and supported previously." I'm just looking. So there's a comment here from Christine, which is actually very important. Christine, would you like to speak to that?
Let me just unmute myself. Yeah, so I guess I'd qualify as an amateur photographer. And I photograph for my own website and my organization's website and so forth. And I've just found over the years that if you have a photo's worth many words. So if you take a good photograph, and everybody now is a photographer with their smartphones, but that doesn't mean they produce a good photo. So you could actually, I think, cost yourself funding if you have poor imagery. You also have to be very, very sensitive of who you're taking. You know, if it's a child who's ill, is that an appropriate photo to take? You have to ask yourself that. If it's a school you've built or a classroom, you don't want to have children you know, staring off into the distance. If you're taking a picture of a classroom with kids, you know, make funny faces so the kids look at you and smile. So you feel that you're in that classroom with them. So you really need to give some really good thought about what would frame your project or your crowdfunding campaign in the most engaging way, and that you don't shoot into light, you have the light behind your back, just the most basic photo tips, and then put it through a photo editor that increases the resolution if you don't have that ability on your phone itself. So there are lots of tips available on Google to how to produce really good quality photographs. And maybe I was thinking also, is it appropriate to ask the donors to send photographs of themselves to what they're donating to? I don't know the appropriateness of that. So that just came to mind. Patrick, is that appropriate or not appropriate in some instances? Just to get the relationship entrenched.
Yes, no, you know, Christine, it is a critical point, and you know, more and more you'll see blog posts, news articles, those things are important. You know, Twitter, a very powerful written medium into which to engage. But we found that the highest rate of conversion that we get from posts through to actual support comes through visual imagery. And so, Christine, that is people. You know, it's just like this thing. You don't walk up to someone and just start speaking to them. You see them first and then engage with them. That's how we operate as humans. So in many ways, if you think of your communications in the same way, a powerful image is what draws people in to then engage with the text or the campaign itself. A question that does need to be considered in that is firstly, as you're saying, like, do you have permission to use those images? And just to be aware of especially when you're dealing with let's say in specific areas, whether it's with children, whether it's people with physical challenges and so forth, do you have the permission that you need? You don't want to deal with the backlash from that side, but it's also, especially if you're dealing with a closed group of donors, it is absolutely appropriate to share imagery directly from the organization or the beneficiaries themselves, because that is not expected to go out into the public domain. But it's yes, getting beautiful imagery, it's worth taking that time. And Christine is definitely someone, if you within this community, if you're wanting to speak to someone who understands that, someone like Christine, I'm sure Christine, you'd be very open to people speaking to you on that, because that is your world.
Yeah, very, very happy to. And it's something anybody can learn. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
Patrick, I'm sorry. I just wanted to point out there are 2 more questions that have been posted. And since we have 5 minutes, I just wanted to make sure that they got answered. I can read them to you.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
From Katlego in Catalyst, South Africa. Based on your experience, what are some key lessons that philanthropic organizations can learn from successful crowdfunding campaigns? And then the second one is from Kelechuku. In crowdfunding, one basic challenge is how to effectively tell your story of support. What are the key ideas to consider when crafting your story of support?
Okay. So I'll actually answer on the first one. What are the key lessons in terms of philanthropists can learn from successful crowdfunding campaigns? Okay, so with this, and this is like, once you've actually run a successful campaign, what are the key lessons that you look back on? Firstly, and this is probably the biggest, if you do anything, do this, and that is inform your donors and community what you've done with their funds. That's it. And that speaks to trust. If you build that trust relationship, and if you're wanting to ask people to donate or support you into the future, let them know what you've done in the past. And some people might be concerned about oversharing and so forth, but again, Henley is such an excellent example of how you don't have to have a massive organization, communications team, and so forth. Henley runs this organization and has many people he works with, but literally he is the person who engages and lets his donors know what they've what they've done with those funds. So out of everything, whether it's excellent text, whether it's excellent imagery and so forth, just keep your donors informed and regard them and respect them as a community who you would like to grow with and support in the future. And I was in a call yesterday, or in a meeting, a workshop with one of the real leading kind of social enterprises in Africa, in South Africa, called R Labs, Marlon Parker, an amazing man. Katlego will know him well. And he reminded me of exactly that. He said right throughout his career, they've become very successful because he constantly engages with the people who've supported him over the last 15 years to let them know where he's at, what they've done with the funding, and what their ambitions and or dreams are going forward. Then secondly, what is a challenge to tell us your story of support in crowdfunding investors? How effective to tell your story of support? What are the key ideas to consider when crafting your story of support? Actually, to that, I would like to ask, would Erica or Sadika like to reply to that?
I'm happy to. I actually bring this straight away. What I'd love to do is highlight Sadika's point about finding a stat, a statistic. I actually wrote that down. I was like, oh yes, I must remember that. And the other one, funnily enough, is to summarize your project. So as standard way is like who, what, why, where, and how. And then head to ChatGPT on the free account and just say, please word this for me in 20 words or less. So you won't always get the perfect thing, but I actually find it sparks off all sorts of ideas, and it's free and it's quick. And so often when you're reading those, one of them will resonate and you go, that's the one that's telling my story. Those would be kind of, yeah, grab a
Wonderful.
stat and get some help.
Thank you, Erica. And we are now down to our last minute. Are there any final comments that any of the panelists would like to add in terms of a takeaway for our attendees?
Patrick, I think I'm just gonna reiterate what Eric said. I think campaign writing is the most challenging that organizations do face. And because I do the groundwork, as you mentioned, of campaigns within BackaBuddy, I think I'm gonna highlight once again is I think there was late attendees that came in. The 7 things that I've seen that won't lead to fail within the campaign writing, if we do it really good, is one, like Erika said, start with a hook, which can be a statistic, a question that is asked that grabs donors' attentions, highlight problem articulated very well within your campaign of what problem is that you want to solve, what is it that you need funding for, share your vision. I think that's also one of the key things of show people why you are wanting to solve the problem and what positive impact that your resolution can do for the problem. Then personalize your story once again, we go on to that, and then make it tangible. Have a call to action. I think that's the most important thing, whether it is a call to action to share the post or campaign or donate to it. And then lastly, just gratitude, just saying thank you. I think we need to tell our donors at least 3 times thank you before it actually sinks in. So always just pop in at the bottom a little thank you for them. And I think with those 7 points, really, really cannot go wrong.
Sadiqa, thank you very much. Chai or Henley?
Sorry, yes, I think, go ahead, Henry.
Just that I'm very happy. I've learned a lot here, and I'll push my work. Especially, someone talked about imagining some work that we can happen. I had that situation of imagining what I can do for my community. And then one of the kids came from Germany, started building the bridge, which we didn't have. So sometimes adding up some value in our charity work, it works. As I've said, I'm very happy that you called for this meeting. I will do all my best to help my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. As I said, it's like, and again, what I've seen is painting a future as to where your journey is going to go to from where you are now is critically important. Chai, final comment before we sign off?
Yes, final comment is, the technology and the presentation are probably the easiest part, right? It's just to reiterate that it's a journey. It takes work and planning for success.
Wonderful, Chai. Thank you very much. And as you said, guys, this is something exciting to get involved with. On our side, from the BackaBuddy side, over 50,000 individual campaigns have launched on BackaBuddy. So that gives you an idea. It's not something that you should be worried about. It's something that you should embrace as an exciting part of your funding strategy going forward. And you can see there's various platforms and people here you can speak to directly who will be able to assist and support you in that journey. Thank you very much. And at this stage, I'd like to hand back over to our Catalyst team to close out, I believe.
Thank you so much, Patrick and Sadiqa, Chai and Henley and Erica for sharing your expertise. We don't want to keep you, but we want to thank everybody else for attending this session. We hope that this has been informative. It has certainly been for our team as well. And we want to encourage everybody to continue attending Catalyzing Change Week sessions. Today is our last day, and there are exciting closing sessions, including at 2 o'clock. We will be celebrating Catalyst Award winners who are leaders in really engaging in better and more equitable funding practices. So please come to that. And then also our closing ceremony at 4 o'clock. Thank you again, everybody. Take care, and please do stay engaged with Catalyst.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Bye, 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 bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.